One of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets was launched into space. It was carrying 60 gleaming new satellites that will become part of the company's Starlink communications network in the future. For months, SpaceX has been launching the tiny satellites into orbit around Earth, with over 400 of them now in orbit. Let's know more. Hello and welcome to Elon Musk Daily. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell to get updated with technology trends. We bring you the video related to high-speed broadband internet, which Elon brings to us as Starlink. Starlink's long-term goal is to provide high-speed data to nearly every corner of the globe. But with an estimated 40,000 satellites required to achieve the company's loftiest goal, it's unclear how long it will take to get the system up and running in any capacity. We now know thanks to SpaceX CEO Elon Musk's tweets. On the day of the launch, Musk responded to a question on Twitter about how long he expects Starlink to be operational. Normally, such questions go unanswered, especially on Twitter, but Musk was happy to share the short-term roadmap. Private beta starts in 3 months, public beta in 6 months, with high latitudes first, Musk said. We can expect at least a few more batches of Starlink satellites to be deployed by that point, as SpaceX has been on a steady schedule of satellite deployment, but some serious questions remain. Starlink is designed as being capable of delivering high-speed broadband internet to locations where access has been unreliable, expensive, or completely unavailable. In a tweet from the official SpaceX account, to say the least, it's a big project, but who knows where the network will be in 3 months. Users should expect choppy, intermittent service while the company irons out any kinks in private beta, which we assume means invite-only rather than a lottery system. When you consider that SpaceX wants Starlink to eventually have 40,000 satellites, the fact that testing will begin with fewer than 1,000 satellites in orbit would indicate that we are getting closer to the Starlink service's commercial launch more than we think. When the public beta begins in 6 months, the service will most likely be pushed to its limits. The project is already generating a lot of buzz, and depending on how many beta customers the company believes the system will be able to handle at that point, we could be witnessing the start of a broadband revolution. Over the next 10 years, SpaceX plans to launch 12,000 satellites, significantly increasing the number of space satellites orbiting the Earth. Because it would cost SpaceX billions of dollars, they must have a compelling reason to do so. We need to know how this organization will operate and how it will compete with currently available internet services. Elon announced in 2015 that SpaceX had begun working with a correspondent satellite organization, claiming that there was a large, untapped market for low-cost broadband capabilities all over the world. SpaceX opened a new office in Redmond, Washington, around that time, to design and manufacture these new correspondent satellites. The underlying agreement called for the launch of 2 model satellites in 2016, and the entire satellite group by 2020. The organization, on the other hand, attempted to promote a recipient. What could have been effectively offered by the customer for a low cost resulted in the program being postponed, with the underlying model satellites not flying until 2018. Following the successful deployment of 2 models, Tintin-N and B, which allowed SpaceX to test and refine its satellite plan, the company remained tight-lipped about what would happen next. On May 24th, the flagship group of Creation satellites, on top of the 4,400 supported at the time, was launched into space as part of the Starlink project, which began in November 2018, when SpaceX received FCC approval to launch 7,500 satellites into orbit. The train of satellites in the night sky was quickly recognized by people all over the world. While the underlying accumulation of satellites is not entirely practical, this dispatch is an indication of what may be on the horizon. They'll be used to test things like Earth Interchange Framework and the Krypton engine, which will be used to deorbit space equipment when it has reached the end of its life cycle on their own. First, let's take a look at these features. We've looked into how practical engines work first, which you can see in more detail here, but in essence, they use electrical potentials to accelerate particles from spacecraft. Because of its higher atomic mass, which allows it to deliver more kick per iota, xenon is used impressively for being idle and stockpiling longer on a shuttle. It has a high stockpiling thickness. In any case, SpaceX chose Krypton over xenon because xenon is undeniably the more expensive fuel. The Starlink satellites will be propelled from the distribution circles at 440 kilometers to their final orbit of a height of 550 kilometers using this particle engine. They'll also be used by the onboard Control 4 spinners, as well as the U.S. government Space Impact Forecasting Framework, to allow satellites to change their orbits in order to avoid the accidents we've discussed. When satellites reach the end of their administrative lives, the same behavioral controls and engines can be used to deorbit them. SpaceX has included critical equipment to reduce the threat of space flotsam and jetsam. They guarantee that if the satellite resurfaces, 95% of it will be destroyed in their application to the Federal Communications Commission. With only inward construction and silicon carbide parts, particle engines are likely to last a long time. Because silicon carbide is the fundamental material for laser activity and thus has an extremely high soft spot of 2,750 degrees Celsius, that's probably what they'll get, are a requirement of the satellite. Although that FCC recording tells us that the satellites will have 5 1.5 kilogram silicon carbide parts, indicating that each satellite will have 5 different lasers, SpaceX has been quiet on the satellite's large number of subtleties. These lasers will be used to communicate data between satellites in the same way that fiber optic links are used on Earth. Despite being sent into space by light, these are a significant advantage to communicating with light here on Earth. Light does not travel at the same speed in all materials. In fact, light travels 47% slower in glass than in a vacuum. This gives Starlink a significant advantage, as it will most likely be its primary source of revenue. Thursday's mission will be SpaceX's 34th dedicated launch of Starlink satellites. SpaceX has explained why the Falcon 9 rocket will fly to orbit in a southeasterly direction on its next mission, or how many Starlink satellites will be on board. Dedicated Falcon 9 launches with SpaceX's latest Starlink spacecraft have carried anywhere from 48 to 53 satellites per mission. To date, SpaceX has launched 1,944 Starlink satellites, with the next mission bringing the total close to 2,000. However, not all of the satellites stay in orbit. Some have failed to reach orbit after launch, and SpaceX has been deorbiting others on purpose, either due to technical issues or obsolescence as newer designs reach orbit. As of Sunday, SpaceX had 1,468 satellites providing Starlink internet service, according to Jonathan McDowell, an astrophysicist and expert tracker of spaceflight activity. Each of the flat panel satellites weighs about a quarter ton. The satellites will use krypton-fueled ion thrusters to maneuver into their operating orbits of an altitude of 335 miles, where they will join the rest of the Starlink fleet. According to a company filing with the International Telecommunications Union, SpaceX has a long-term plan to launch as many as 42,000 Starlink satellites. The company's first priority is to deploy 4,400 satellites into the first 5 orbital shells. Last month, Jonathan Hofeller, SpaceX's vice president of Starlink and commercial sales, stated that the Starlink network now serves customers in over 20 countries. In a panel discussion at Euroconsult's annual World Satellite Business Week event in Paris, he said, "We have well over 100,000 subscribers, both on the customer and enterprise sides. We have no intention of slowing down. We're only getting started." That said, this is it for today's video. So what is your take on this matter? Tell us in the comments. If you want to see our upcoming video, ring the bell icon, and don't forget to like our video as well. That's all from my side. Thanks for watching.